right, and welcome back to the broadcast. Time for the People's Court, the conversation triggered by that bill that was introduced by Kakamega Senator, but then again, of course, at the level of Senate, he has decided to take a backseat on that, and the question is why. But of course, without lingering much onto that, the biggest concern would be around the concerns that he had raised in the bill, valid points that perhaps would bring sanity. Remember that we have had a lot of struggle in trying to sanitize the Bodaboda sector. And while Victor really insists on talking about the motorcycle industry, like basically largely, I think the biggest concern would be about or around the Bodaboda sector. We have stakeholders right here. I am told that we expect to have the NTSA Programs Director joining us virtually. Once we are able to get a hold of them, we'll let you know. But at this very point, I think we get straight to introducing the guest. But I think I'll ask this question that Victor Moyakani, just asked right before we were on board. What is this that the Kakamega Senator was told that he has to, he had to take a turn around, or perhaps an about turn as to this? Has this thing become political as it is from the word go? Because then these bills are discussed, are presented, and are passed at the level of Parliament. We start with you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Like you have heard, my name is Alex, and me, I like speaking as well so that my members can hear me clear.
Nani wengi wana watch hapa saa hii.
Okay, mimi kwanza nikizungumzia venye umeniambia hivyo mambo ya Luale, ni kweli Seneta hakuwa sio nini alikuwa anajaribu kulete. Alikuwa na idea lakini hakuwa anajua nini anataka kuleta. So ukipeleka kitu alafu itidwe na maanisha kwamba hata wewe mwenyewe umefeel kwamba hiyo kitu ni mbaya. Unaweza kuwa na chakula mzuri lakini ukiweka sumu kidogo inakuwa hiyo chakula yote ni mbaya, inabidi umemwaga. And next time the advice Senator kwamba if you have something unataka kupeleka kusukuma ya bodaboda, ni vizuri kuuliza kwanza the stakeholders, the leaders wa hiyo sector, wakupee maoni so that ukipeleka isiende kupigwa teke. Ni aibu sana kama kiongozi upeleke kitu then reverse mara moja hata kama watu wajekalia chini waanze kuichambua. And yet time by the way amekuwa na time nzuri sana tangia sema hii kitu imeenda karibu miezi 6. Angechukua time yake vizuri kuita viongozi wakae chini waambie hapa hivi unafaa uregeze kidogo, hapa hivi unafanya namna hii. Okay, mimi kwa maoni yangu nasema kwamba hii kitu ya Senator alikuwa ameleta si mbaya sana na si mzuri sana, but now vile tumesema hivyo kitu bill ni kama package. Wanazunua bill ikipita hata ile mbaya yenye ni kidogo itakukula tu. So I think itabidi arudi kwa drawing board in future kuje kama amejipanga mzuri. Nilikuwa tu bado ninazungumzia kwa hiyo nafasi nimepewa. Nataka nizungumzie vitu kwa ameleta. Kuna vitu kwa ameleta vitu ya trackers. Okay, tracker mimi naona kama ni biashara fulani mtu alikuwa anataka kufanya. Sababu unajua
pause kidogo
tutaenda
pause kidogo and allow me Victor Moyakani quickly just highlight some of the things that the bill had proposed. Like you say, you have interacted with it. It's important that Kenyans as well get to understand and we see what could have been the problem therein. Of course, the Public Transport Motorcycle Regulation Bill 2023 and a couple of things therein. Number one, the bill also mandates the licensing and registration of riders, designated routes, and stricter enforcement of the traffic rules. That is from what it had proposed, that a sweeping overhaul that would require Bodaboda owners to enter into written contracts with their riders, detailing payment structures, working hours, as well as conditions of employment. Under the proposed law, county governments would play a central role in regulating the sector, with the County Executive Committee CEC member responsible for transport working alongside a newly established board chaired by governor appointment. Another proposal among the provisions, the bill requires motorbike owners to register with cooperative societies before securing licenses. Commercial operators would also need to meet specific safety requirements, that is including providing riders with 2 helmets as well as reflective jackets, while prohibiting unauthorized modifications to motorcycles. 2 other more, or maybe 3 other more. Motorcycle-based delivery services operators would need a special license and motorbikes equipped with storage compartments. The bill also proposes fitting each motorcycle with a tracker that allows real-time monitoring of its location, and also outlaws carrying more than one adult passenger. and violating traffic regulations or using poorly maintained motorcycles. Lastly, Victor, it proposes steep fines for riders that are engaging in criminal activities or riding on pedestrians' pathways, and three-wheeled tuk-tuks will also be covered under the bill and will be limited to carrying 3 passengers, while bodabodas will be limited to carrying 1. I am yet to understand what could have been the problem therein.
Very good.
There's someone?
We have the guys here and they'll tell us. So we will get the perspective of the bodaboda. We'll also get the perspective of the private bikers of this country.
Right.
Because they are also a very significant populace on our roads. But we're informed that we have the Mr. Musumba Samuel from NTSA coming to us live from Naivasha. Mr. Musumba, if you can hear us, let's just sample some of your comments on this. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Oh, good evening. How are you? How's Nairobi?
Yes, we're doing great. We have some key stakeholders here. How's Naivasha?
Naivasha is quite dry and hot, but a bit relaxed than Nairobi because less traffic here. Not so many issues. So far, so good. We've been in a meeting with the county government. We have been training the county transport and safety committees, and these are committees that are actually charged with the responsibility of looking at them.
Low. Could you speak louder? Much better, much better.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Much better, much better. So, Mr. Musumba, if I may, Mr. Musumba, in a second, we were talking about road safety, particularly motorcycle transport safety, and of course we're talking about bodaboda and the private bikers. Have you had a chance to look at the bill that Senator Khalwale was proposing, and what do you make of it?
Yeah, I've looked at that bill, and what I would say is that the spirit of that bill is very good. Where we sit as NTSA, because this is a sector that we have interacted with for a long time, and I will tell you that it is a sector that has grown exponentially from registrations of as low as 3,000 riders a couple of years ago. Now we are talking about over 2.5 million riders in the country. And if you look at majority of these riders, how they have gotten into the sector without any training, without proper licensing, and the kind of things now that come out of that, we see a lot of flouting of the regulations, we see overloading, and the aftermath of all this is the kind of road death related to motorcycle riding in this country. It is just on another level. If you look at the categories of the victims that are affected most on our roads, second to the pedestrians, actually it is the bodaboda guys. And there's no year that we have had a respite where it has gone down. It's quite exponential. Actually, they account for over 38% of the road deaths in this country, and that's worrying. So this bill, if you look at it, it borrows so much in the motorcycle regulations of 2015, which have been there. If you look at that bill, it's talking about the issue of use of helmets, which is a protective gear, you know. Most of the injuries that these guys are going through are head injuries, and head injuries are really very serious injuries. If you look at that bill, it's talking about how do you load this bike, the kind of weight. If you are carrying 50 kgs and a passenger, I mean, that's too heavy for the kind of CCs that we see for these motorbikes. And then the other controls in terms of the operating hours, we have seen quite a number of these riders operating up to very late, and sometimes that again brings in the insecurity challenges that we have, because you're operating at that hour. Who is watching you? Who is monitoring, you know, your movements from where to where? And so the bill brings in a bit of that order. The other thing that we've really been, which is actually in the 2015 motorcycle regulations, talks about these guys have to be self-regulated. How? But through a structure. an organized structure. And we are looking at how do we then structure this sector is through the circles. Through the circles, then we can grow leadership out of that. Then we can be able to really coordinate and manage this sector, very effectively with good leadership that comes out of, those circles. Through those organized groups, it's much easier to even do trainings and then look at other things, licensing and then ownership of these motorbikes through the, getting logbooks here and there. It's much easier when they are organized and really well structured.
All right.
So really, the bill picks it up from there, and we're saying, yeah, this bill was okay in terms of structuring this sector. Where we sit, it was okay. Yes.
All right. So then, if it was okay, and clearly, if all of us are listening to you, and we're hearing you say that a lot of what has made its way into the bill is actually existing legislation, it's existing policy. So my question to you is, how come this existing policy, the laws and the things that were there before, how come they require another bill to be able to bring the change that you propose? What went wrong with implementing the previous regulations and the laws? And
perhaps back up that question, when you say that we have evident problems like you have highlighted, and now this bill has officially been withdrawn, do we say then we continue with these kinds of sins or with these kinds of troubles that we continue to witness?
I would say that if you look at transport in our constitution, it's also a devolved function. And some of the functions that are devolved at the county level include the operations of taxis, which also include actually the operation of Bodaboda, which are really fairly commercial, I would say, provide the last mile in our transport system. And this is supposed to be the preserve of actually the counties. But for a long time, since 2015, when the regulation now was put in place, it has been almost like a national government kind of thing. And so counties were not really as involved as it is required. And so what we see now happening was a bit difficult even to enforce some of those regulations because, again, with the devolution, we're supposed to complement each other. We're supposed to work together to ensure that safety happens. I mean, if you look at the areas operate at the county level, the county is supposed to provide drop-off points, pick-up points, even operating hours and all that. It's supposed to manage all that. But that was not happening. So as we see the coming in of this bill, as it is strengthening that. It's bridging those gaps that then were there, that now the national government and the county government can actually work together, complement each other to address the challenges that are in this sector. And we will see even enforcement improving, because if you're talking about combining national level and county level kind of enforcement, then we're saying we'll see good results in this. So there have been gaps in terms of enforcement, in terms of then handling this particular sector. But now with the coming of the bill, it bridges those gaps and brings us to one table to look at this problem, both national government and county government, at the same time. As we deal with the registration of these bikes and the riders and all that, so it's really going to give us an opportunity to really, handle this sector together through collaboration with the counties. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Now, Mr. Musumba, we'll be coming back to you in a second. But at this point, let us get to hear from the senator himself, Senator Khalwale. Earlier on, this is what he said concerning this bill and this matter. Mr. Producer, take it away, please.
Tumefikiria mambo mingi sana ndani ya huu mswada, na ninaona watu ambao hawana heshima na wanyonge wameifanya jambo la kisiasa, wanaanza kuweka katika mdomo yao mbele kwamba hii ni sheria mbaya, kiasi ya kwamba mpaka vijana wetu wadogo wa bodaboda wanaanza kufikiri mimi naweza kuwa adui yao. Ili ieleweke vizuri kwamba mimi ni mtetezi, nilikuwa ninatetea zile shida wanazopitia hawa vijana, because mwenye anataka kuchochea anafikiri he can think better than me. Ninampatia nafasi, kesho narudi katika bunge, ile mswada ya bodaboda ninaandikia clerk na speaker wa Senate, clerk na speaker wa National Assembly, sasa that bill is going to be dropped so that watu waendelee maisha ya kawaida. We don't want to fight with the youth wrongly. If they don't like something, they don't like it. Just like walikataa maneno ya finance, walikataa. Na kama wamekataa bill ya bodaboda, wamekataa, wacha maisha yaendelee. A time will come, maybe, when some people will feel this is something that should be done.
All right, thank you so much. That was Senator Khalwale. Melania, I saw your face reacting to what he was saying. Talk to me about your feelings on this.
Thank you so much. What I feel about what my good friend Mr. Musumba has said, I guess whatever he's talking about has been there years and years, and I was really waiting to hear what implementation have they done, but he did not touch on that, because these are regulations that have been there all the time. We keep on discussing them, but zero implementation about them. So whatever the senator had brought, I don't know whether he had consulted the NTSA, because if we go to the wall of the NTSA, they are there. But my biggest question is, what have they done?
What do you suppose could have stopped us from implementing some of this? I mean, you've been in the game long enough. What do you suppose is that, link that, has broken in terms of how we get to have the proposals, to have the policies, but they're not implemented?
I would say, one, it's lack of, we are so much disorderly, the bodaboda sector. Two, corruption. That is the whole thing that makes these rules not to be implemented. Because we said about registration. We have talked about registering the bodabodas, but how many bodabodas do we have in Kenya? What strategy are you using to make sure these bodabodas are registered? Do you follow up with the SACCOs? The two gentlemen we were discussing, asking them, how many SACCOs do we have? Are they known by the government? But they were like, we only know ourselves as SACCOs. And they also say they have a challenge because there are people who are still operating in their area, but they don't belong to the SACCO. But they are able to operate. Do we have enough enforcers to tame these bodaboda people? Because I think we just have few reckless bodabodas who are making all the others look bad. We have private bikers. Yeah. Why don't we hear so much issues about them? Right. It is all about order. They know they should have the helmet, they should be registered and all that. But now our government will always want shortcuts. That is what I really say, even if the rules were, you cannot keep on sugarcoating, because let me call it sugarcoating, because are those rules going to educate these bodaboda riders on how to ride? We are talking about kids who are, how do we know they are kids? Do we have enough places to train these people? They say they do not have. They are saying it is too expensive for them to get trained. So what is the government doing? And to tame all these, honestly speaking, we'll have from regulating how they buy the motorbikes. How, that is where we'll have to start the issue.
Right at the beginning.
Yeah,
right
that
at
is the beginning.
First point of ownership.
Oh, yes.
All right, we'll come back to it in a second. I could see you, agreeing and disagreeing with some of the things Melania was talking about. What's your view, Patrick?
Thank you. My name is Patrick Mlusa, Mwenyekiti Kibera Bodaboda Sacco. I think I disagree with Bwana Musumba in one point. Sababu hizo sheria ambazo anaongelea zimekuwepo. Sekta ya bodaboda haijaanza leo, haijaanza jana. Ilianza miaka 25 iliyopita. Na mzee ambaye aliitwa Mwai Kibaki ambaye alituacha, na tunajivunia kwa sababu hawa youth ambao bwana Boni Khalwale anaongelea si wana youth wako kwa bodaboda peke yao. We are also in the bodaboda sector as parents, and we get income from our earnings. So bodaboda is a sector that comprises all the groups, the youth and the elderly and the middle class. So the sheria ambazo zimekuwa zikiongelewa kila wakati, hizi sheria zimekuwepo, but implementation. In Kenya, we as an industry, we are a business in our own, because we have so many businesses in Kenya. And once you want to start a business, you have to be licensed. We as Bodabodas, for you to operate as a Bodaboda guy or a Bodaboda rider, you have to go through a training of a school that will obtain a license. So we have the licenses. A few don't have. They should give us an avenue of the others who don't have the license so that they can get the licenses. You can't tell me somebody like me over 40 years, you are taking back me to school where I was 20 years ago. I do have a license. Niko na license, niko na insurance. As a businessman, ninatakana niwe nina renew your license yearly or after 3 years.
Patrick, I have a question on that.
Yes.
In your estimation and in your experience,
Yes.
say over 20 years, what percentage of operators are licensed and what percentage are not?
Like 40% are licensed.
40%?
Yes.
So we're talking about
60%.
majority are not licensed?
Yes.
So would you blame Kenyans, for example, who feel, okay, it's hard for me as a Kenyan to know who's licensed, who's not? Would you blame Kenyans who say, why don't we have all of the members have training? The ones who don't have training will be trained for the first time. The ones who have been trained before will get a refresher course. Is there any problem with that?
We are not blaming Kenyans. We are blaming the government of the day that is reluctant on implementations of these things.
Nyinyi ni chair. You're a chair.
Yeah, I'm a chair.
He is a chair.
Yes, we do.
But how are you helping the government in making sure that you pinpoint these individuals? Perhaps maybe the systems are fractured in a way, but what are you doing yourselves to make sure that you sanitize or streamline the sector?
Tumekuwa tunataka serikali itusaidie kwa sababu wamesema any rider operator inafaa awe licensed na awe kwa sacco. We do have these SACCOs.
Right.
But the government should give us finances so that we can help our people down there to be licensed.
Hold it right there. We'll be
Yes.
coming back to you.
All right.
There's the private sector. David, you've been here again in this sector for the longest of time. I have had instances where they actually,
rider.
there are instances where private sector or perhaps the private side of the bikers would not want to be associated with these other bodabodas because they almost feel like, now they are being painted black where they are not supposed to be painted
All riders
black.
are equal.
Are you as orderly? Are you as orderly as we would want to imagine? And why do you suppose then that this other side is finding it difficult to just get to have this element of order so that we all can say that we are safe using the bodabodas and, we do away with all these concerns that we're talking about, that 60% regulated, 60% not?
Well, I believe we are very orderly as the private bikers and we are a close-knit family. Before you become a private biker, let alone the association, if you want to be a private biker and be part of us, you have to undergo training. We have trainers who've been trained both in Kenya and outside the country.
Okay.
So you have to go for that training first, then go to one of the driving schools to get your license. And once you finish your training, we have things called nyumba kumis, just like the SACCOs as is nyumba kumis.
Okay.
You're put in a nyumba kumi, and we have other riders who support you in your first days of riding. Another thing about the private bikers is safety is key. Under PBAK, we have 4 pillars: legislation, association, safety, and training. So in every nyumba kumi, we have to make sure that you're in a group of people who have been riding. They check what kind of the CC of the bike that you ride, because we start from small all the way up. You cannot have started riding a week ago and you get onto a big bike. That's disaster for you.
Okay.
So we start small and we are our brothers and sisters keepers every day. If I'm on the road and I see you riding without a helmet, I will stop you. I'll ask you, where's your helmet? Where's your safety gear? That way, I'll know tomorrow you'll be on the road. But for the bodabodas, we have tried talking to them. Okay. We talk to them. But how we can bring change to the bodaboda sector is through the private bikers, through you people who are carried by these bodabodas. If a bodaboda does not have a helmet, just tell him, by the way, my safety level here, no. If he's intoxicated, I'm not getting onto your bike. If you see a rider doing the wrong thing, riding on the wrong side of the road, stop him, ask him. So if we change one rider at a time. It will get to a point where the whole society will have changed.
Okay.
And you realize the two gentlemen who are here are elderly. I don't think the problem is with them. It is the younger generation.
Okay.
You clear Form 4, you're like, get onto a bike. How much is it? You get a loan, you need to pay 500 bob a day. Within one evening, you're taught, zunguka hapa, gear ni hivi. The following day, the guy is on the road.
Right.
Road rules, nothing. So I think the bigger problem we have is the younger generation of the riders. These older ones, they're mature. So that 60%, we have older ones probably who also don't have licenses, but they are mature, they know what they're doing.
Okay.
But the younger generation is where the big problem is.
That's where the problem is.
That's where the problem is.
Okay, so we will come back to that. I want us to take a short break and digest what we've learned.
Yeah.
Some key points have been said here. Mr. Musumba has said something, Dr. Halwale has said others, and the people in studio have shared their views. Let's take a short break. Let us know what you think through the SMS line. And if you're watching us on YouTube, go on the chat, send in your feedback. We'll sample it live and direct. We'll be right back.
Okay.